short and sweet, to the point. So first of all, thanks everybody for coming out. For anybody who doesn't know me, I was first elected as a school trustee in 2002. I became an MLA in 2005 to the riding of Prince George Almanica. I was re-elected to the riding of Nechako Lakes in 2009, and I'm still serving that riding and have the honor of serving that riding since then. I've served as Minister for Aboriginal Relations and Reconciliation for just over 4 years. I've signed 435 agreements with First Nations. I also served for a short period of time as Minister of Forest Lands and Natural Resource Operations. A host of other stuff that has happened, you know, in life in Victoria. But Victoria, quite frankly, somebody asked me when I announced that I decided to come over and become a member of the Conservative Party, and somebody asked me, he said, wouldn't it be great if we could just get one more MLA to come over, one more, and then you can have official party status? And I said, that's not my focus. I don't really care about that, because what goes on in Victoria is important, but quite frankly, it's the grassroots in this province that matter. Because it's the grassroots in the province that's going to change how we are as a province and what we can do, you know, as a political party. And that's all of you guys. So a little bit about my history, about why I became an independent and why ultimately I came here. So back in December of 2021, the federal government put forward a party paper, or I guess a position paper, that was called the Farm Emissions Reduction Strategy. And essentially this is the WEF's, you know, 30% reduction in use of nitrogen-based fertilizer and a 30% reduction in cattle herds. Well, domesticated animals in particular, although they haven't quite gotten to pets yet, but they're talking about it. They will. So I looked at that and I went, 35% of the economic activity in my riding is agriculture. This would be devastating for my riding, particularly the cattle reduction, because, you know, we do a lot of cow-calf operations. And so I said to the party, I found out about this in April, so I said to Kevin Falcon and the BC Liberal Party, I said, we got to have a discussion on the climate issues. Okay, yep, we'll get it on an agenda. Well, then in May I said, hey, when are we going to have this discussion? We've got to have this discussion about it. Well, you know, we're going to work on it. We're actually thinking we'll do it, you know, when we do our AGM in June. AGM, well, we're not going to do that then. We're going to do it in our planning session in July. Planning session in July was canceled, and I said, you know, screw that. This has got to be talked about it because of the impact for my riding. And so I started pushing this issue a little bit more. I was respectful in terms of, you know, what I put out on social media. Anyway, so it turns out I retweeted something from Patrick Moore, which questioned the whole role of CO2 and, you know, some other things. I did that on a Sunday. And then on Wednesday, the NDP decided they want to play a game with this, right? And so they put the attack dogs on me about this whole thing. And that's politics, that's all fun. Well, lo and behold, I get a call from Kevin Falcon demanding that I take down this retweet that I'd done. And my first thinking is, what retweet? I didn't even remember that I'd tweeted this thing out on a Sunday. I mean, it was that sort of simple a little thing. At the time, though, it was my birthday, and so I decided to take the day off, and so I didn't answer my phone for the day, and of course it was ringing off the hook. Everybody's trying to get a hold of me to deal with this thing. So the next day, I'd arranged a time to speak with Kevin Falcon, and got on the phone with him, and of course he was angry about the whole thing, and he said, look, you cannot be out saying something that isn't our party position on climate. And I said, well, that's interesting, because we haven't actually had a discussion with you as leader on climate. But, you know, regardless of that, my job was to be elected to represent my riding. That's the job of every MLA. It should be the #1 job, to represent their riding, to fight for their constituents. And his response wasn't quite these words, but essentially what he wanted me to do is be a parrot for the party position. To just go out and talk about whatever the party position is. I said, no, I'm not willing to do that. I want to fight for my riding because this is an issue that's going to impact my riding. We said, well, you got two choices. You either hold the line and parrot our party position, or you can't be part of our caucus. And I said, I was elected by my constituent. I'm going to fight for my constituents. He said, fine, hung up on me. Half an hour later, I was kicked out. Wow. So that just goes to show where things were. That party that I was part of, and I spent 22 years in the BC Liberal Party, over 18 years elected, representing and fighting to build up that party. But that's where that party has become. It's no longer a party that accepts, you know, people's opinions. You know, Judy talked about the fact that, you know, wants her vote but not her voice. That's what the party's become. Very much a central command. We used to have free votes. People now in that party are asked to leave the chamber if they're not going to vote the way the party wants them to. They're not allowed to stand up and voice their opinion. They're not allowed to have a perspective. So I'm actually thinking, quite frankly, the BC Liberals gave me the best birthday present they possibly could have. Because it's allowed me now to actually have a voice. So what I want to see happen, quite frankly, and the reason why the BC Conservatives, or the Conservative Party of BC, I should say, because it was rebranded, the reason why this brand has appealed to me particularly is because we need, as a province, to change how politics is done. I mean, quite frankly, it can't be about electing a representative to represent the party to the constituents. It has to be about representing people in their riding. And it's okay to have different voices. Yeah. It's okay to have different issues. I mean, yes, we're going to work together as a party. We want to be able to come forward. We're going to have a united voice, you know, in terms of that stuff. But it's okay to have people come out and say, well, I'm not really comfortable with this, or, you know, we should push in this within, of course, reason. I mean, obviously there's some boundaries that a person has to think about. But I see the Conservative Party as having that ability to do that. I also see the Conservative Party as being the vehicle that can really build a new coalition in this province, because the coalition's broken. Yeah. And if we ever want to see a free enterprise government again in this province, if we ever want to see, you know, the type of changes that I think we need to see in this province, we need to be able to build from the grassroots up with a Conservative brand and a base and a new coalition, so that we can actually govern in this province and take it to where we want it to be, for us and for our children. Yes. The kind of things that I want to fight for, that I think, you know, we need to be thinking about as a party. And, you know, obviously we're going to have to, you know, work together. And because, look, why are you all here? You're all here because you want to make a difference. You want to be engaged. You want to make a difference. Do you know what the secret to the SoCred Party was? Respect for members. Yeah. Having strong membership, having strong voice, having strong engagement. My father-in-law showed me a letter once, a number of years ago, that he got in 1968, and it was signed from W.A.C. Bennett. I'm sure it was just a, you know, a form letter that went out and thing. But what it did is it boasted that the party had 85,000 members in 1968. The province was only like 2.2 or 2.4 million people then. We're like 5.4 million people today. We need to build that kind of strength. The people that were involved there because they owned the party. They felt ownership and about what the party was doing. That's what we need to do. And so some of the ideas I want to put on the table for us to be thinking about, as quite frankly, like was asked here earlier, we only produce 40% of the food that we consume. We are vulnerable to the supply chain disruptions that are happening elsewhere. That is nuts. As a province, we need to get back to the basics about making sure that we can expand our agriculture base, make sure that we can grow the food that we need, as much of it as we can. I mean, we're growing pineapples and things like that, but that's fine. Do what we can in terms of expanding our base, because, quite frankly, I don't want our province to be vulnerable to what's going on outside of our borders. And the same thing goes for energy. We only produce 40% of the energy we consume in this province. The rest of it comes from down in the States or in Alberta. We need to change that. We are vulnerable. In the U.S., in the northeast of the U.S., just this winter, they had a shortage of diesel. They had a shortage of heating fuel. Prices spiked up. It was difficult to get the fuels. Now they managed to find their way through it. But I can tell you something. If they got a problem south of the border, do you think we're going to be a priority? What does that mean for us? What does that mean for our agriculture sector in terms of being able to produce food? What does that mean for the trucking industry in terms of getting our goods and services around for us? Why would we leave ourselves vulnerable when we are rich with resources? We have everything we need as a province. Yeah. Why would we leave ourselves vulnerable? It makes no sense whatsoever. So these are just two simple little things, but I think they're core to what we need to do as a province to be able to make sure that we can, you know, provide for all of us, provide for our future.